Is going on, Notre Dame fans? Mike Singer, Tyler Horka, and Jack Soble live on the Blue and Gold YouTube channel with this week's Notre Dame six-pack, which is sponsored by Academy Sports and Outdoors, which carries all the gear you need from top brands, all at prices you'll love. Shopping there is more convenient than ever. They offer free assembly on in-store purchases of most bikes and grills. Plus free and easy curbside pickup on academy.com orders. Mishawaka location opening on September 29th of this year. This is the Notre Dame Six-Pack Show where we take 6 Notre Dame topics, have 6 minutes to discuss each of them, and you don't hear from me very much. You're welcome, but we'll hear from our local Blue and Gold beat writers, Tyler Horka and Jack Soble, and I trust that these guys are well, so we're going to dive in to the show. Let's see if Singer can't figure out how to do that. There it is. Captain projection, Tyler. You wrote an article projecting some names to know. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, we all know that the Notre Dame quarterback battle will be decided here in probably less than a week. I think we're going to get captains in probably less than a week as well. The timeline usually is like 10 to 14 days before the season opener. So we are getting close to that. And Jack, when I was writing this article, like I wanted to be fair to all of the candidates because let's first remind everybody how this is done. Marcus Freeman's going to get all these guys in the auditorium there in the facility. He's going to say, if you feel like you can be a captain and you want to be a captain and leadership is your thing right now, stand up, step forward, face your team. And you're probably going to get at least a dozen guys who do that, maybe upward of 20, I would say. Like, I hope you have close to 20 guys who feel like they can do it, but we all know that's only going to come down to 5, 6, maybe 7. In the Marcus Freeman era, I think there's been a season with 6, 4, and 5. If you do the math on that, the easy math there, it's an average of 5 per year. So, Jack, I don't know if you want me to just say the 5 that I put in my article or how you want to do this.
Say the 5, and then I can give my thoughts from there.
Okay. I have 2 locks. I think Drake Bowen and Jeremiah Love are like probably your 2 most important players. I wouldn't say most important because Leonard Moore is definitely the most important on defense. Probably he's just a beast at what he does. But like Drake Bowen, heart and soul on the defense. Jeremiah Love, you know what he is on the offense. I think they're locks to be captains. Emil Wagner started every single game for Notre Dame last season in the season that went to the national championship game. I think people recognize that. I think the players vote for that. I think he's going to be a captain. Adon Schuler's kind of taking this torch from Xavier Watts in a way. Like the secondary is incredibly talented, one of the best in the country. You have to have some representation there. I think Adon Schuler makes the most sense given that Leonard Moore is a sophomore. And then, I don't know, here's a little bit of an oddball, Jack. I think teammates look at what Jaden Greathouse did in those last 2 games, the most important games of the year for Notre Dame last year, and they're like, he's a little bit of a heart and soul guy too. He was crying in the locker room after. It means something to him. He did a whole lot in those 2 games. I'm going with those 5. Jaden Greathouse rounding it out.
A couple notes. Bowen, I think, is the shoe-in. We've said this for a long time. Love isn't like as active of a vocal leader, but he's obviously the best player, and he just does everything the right way, right? He just carries himself like a leader. He leads by example. I like that. Schuler, I would predict as well. After those 3, it kind of gets a little complicated. I like the Greathouse shout too. Wagner, I like all your picks. Wagner and Greathouse, like I don't know if I would have thought of them as captains last season, but when you talk to them, like when we talked to Greathouse over the summer, I got a chance to spend a lot of time with Wagner in fall camp. Particularly Emil, but Jaden as well. Like they come off very captain-like, I would say, in ways that they have not in the past. So I like the 5 that you picked. Couple shouts that I think could get serious looks. Will Pauling is a guy, like I know he's a transfer and he's not a quarterback, so that'd be rare, but he is. He's always in the goog. He's a talkative guy. He sets a really good example. He's someone who was a captain at Wisconsin, which I think matters a ton. He's someone who like obviously the list of captains you put out skews young because the core of the team skews young, or at least younger than it did last year. So Pauling's a guy. Speaking of young guys, Leonard Moore is a natural leader. 100. He's a lock for next year. The question is whether they would. I mean, would Notre Dame even allow a true sophomore to be captain? I don't know, but he's absolutely a natural leader. Couple on the D line that I wanted to mention, Josh Burnham and Donovan Heinisch. I think they're not necessarily who you'd think of as best players. I think Heinisch is going to have a great year. We'll talk about that later, but they're not necessarily who you'd think of as best players, but they're a couple guys who have been around for a long time. Made some really under the radar contributions down the stretch last year. They're people who, again, when you talk to them, they kind of come off as captain like.
Yeah, when it gets less obvious, like you were saying, or a little murky after those 2 or 3 who you think for sure, then look at the guys who have been around a while. And it's Heinisch. We saw Joshua Burnham shout in here. I think I had a Junior Tui Halamaka shout on Twitter. So like it's kind of crazy that all these different names are being thrown out there. So I do think my 5 is probably not going to be verbatim, because there's going to be like oh yeah, this makes sense. Like a Jordan Botelho could make sense. I don't know what he's like in the room. 3 years ago, no, I would have said, he's still trying to find himself. He's not going to be a captain. Jalen Snead is kind of like that too. 2 years ago, Jalen Snead probably would have told you, I can't be a captain. He told us the other day, I finally got comfortable talking to these guys as a leader probably around a year ago, definitely throughout last season. So he's in the mix there. But again, you can't have too many. So people who are saying quarterbacks in the comments right now, you don't know who your starter is right now. And we're about to get to that in the next segment. It kind of reminds me of 2022, where Tyler Buckner, we always thought was going to win that competition, but the starter was not announced until that 10 to 14 day range before the season opener. So I don't think like in the 14 days of camp so far that the teammates are like, unless somebody has done something extraordinary, oh yeah, CJ Carr is definitely the captain, or oh yeah, Kenny Minchey is definitely the captain. I don't think Notre Dame's there right now.
Let's talk about those quarterbacks. Eric Hansen, if you go to blueandgold.com right now, wrote a great, well-written piece to kind of give some intel on that. Please check it out at blueandgold.com. And I would say the gist, like if you follow Notre Dame closely and you're on the Blue and Gold message board and whatnot, you've probably seen Kenny Minchey does not need to be discounted. Like he is very much in this battle, Jack. Like maybe he's even the favorite right now.
Yeah, I was going to say not just discounted. It seems like all the buzz is around Minchey right now, and we're not going to give away what specifically what Eric wrote, because you need to go to our site and subscribe for that if you haven't already, of course. But the gist from Eric, from Pete Nakos, from Mike, from what Tyler and I are hearing, I think we would agree is like it's kind of 50-50, and if anything, 55-45 Minchey at the moment. Obviously, like it's not over yet, of course. I think Notre Dame would love it if someone really separated themselves in the next few days heading into Sunday scrimmage, but like I don't think any of us have ever that's happened yet. So if that doesn't happen, then you're in an interesting situation, because like all along we've been told like, oh, they're going to decide who the quarterback is. Someone's going to separate themselves and it's going to be obvious. If that doesn't happen, it comes down to personal preference. And I think the person who should have the most say if it does indeed come down to personal preference, probably Mike Denbrock. It's his offense. He's calling the plays. He should, obviously Marcus Freeman has a deciding vote, but I think Mike Denbrock's input should be most valuable in this discussion.
I would put it that same way. I would say Mike Denbrock. I put it on the message board. Hey, Horka, I think was the thread. Like there is a big time meeting coming, between a meeting of the minds between Marcus Freeman, Mike Denbrock, Gino Gaduli is going to be in there. Maybe even Mike Brown, like maybe even the entire offensive staff. There's going to be a lot of coaches in there. And I think Mike Denbrock needs to make the case, hey, it's this guy because of these reasons. I visualize and envision this if I go with this guy, and that's what I want. Marcus Freeman then signs off. Or Marcus Freeman offers a rebuttal and says, hey, but don't you see this with that guy? There's going to be a pretty comprehensive conversation going on there. Jack, I'm going to spin this a little bit and say, I don't know if us, other people who cover Notre Dame, people who talk about Notre Dame, we didn't really talk about tiebreaker scenarios enough. I guess maybe everybody and their mother thought it was going to be CJ Carr, so you just kind of went with that. But Kenny Minchey has some good tiebreaker traits, if you will. He's been here 1 year longer than CJ Carr. He's the more mobile of the two. if he's gotten those interceptions down, and if that's what CJ Carr is struggling with right now, then like taking care of the football is Marcus Freeman's biggest type. Like that is his characteristic that he's always looking for in a quarterback. And I thought Riley Leonard did that very well last year. And you don't want to stray too far away from that, like throwing the interceptions, putting the ball in harm's way and stuff like that. So if Kenny Minchey is not doing that and it's 50-50, maybe CJ Carr's a little bit more gifted of a passer, those types of things. Like I think Kenny Minchey is in a really good spot because by and large, he is not, from what we've heard, he has not played his way out of contention for this thing. He's very much played his way all the way in. And as Mike said, and some other people have said, maybe he's even, gotten his nose out ahead of CJ Carr a little bit.
Yeah, and you mentioned the mobility that Minchey brings to the table. We'll talk about this more when we go into the pros and cons for each quarterback. But Mike Denbrock has had success with dual threat quarterbacks in the past, from Desmond Ridder to Jaden Daniels to Riley Leonard, and obviously, he's not sitting there saying my offense can't function without a quarterback that gives you a run threat. And obviously, CJ Carr doesn't give you no run threat, but it certainly isn't as much as Minchey would bring. So yeah, I think we're at the point, and Notre Dame is at the point where they're going to have to put their heads together and make a decision. I want to respond to a couple of the comments in the chat. You cannot try to hide this until the 31st. It is impossible, because as soon as you tell the team, Pete Thamel's going to know. Pete Nakos is going to know. We're probably going to know. So nothing is secret at this point. Also, someone on our message board was talking about like, oh, maybe don't tell the team until Miami. That's the worst thing you could possibly do, because at that point, like, then the players are going into Miami with a not insignificant portion of their brain matter dedicated to who's going to be the quarterback and not beat Miami. So that you absolutely unequivocally cannot do that. I also want to address Andy Wright's comment: which quarterback gives the Irish the best chance to win against Miami and A&M? That I still think isn't the question. The question is, who gives Notre Dame the best chance to win a national championship this year or in the next 2 to 3 years? Because when you pick a quarterback, you're hoping that quarterback is your multi-year starter. That's why you didn't go to the portal. That's why you're putting trust in these guys, because it's super valuable to have a multi-year starter in college football.
Look, the guy that you choose that fits everything that you just said, Jack, who's going to be your guy in December and January and hopefully bring you where you want to go, that guy should be able to beat Miami and Texas A&M if that's the case. Right. Maybe not. Maybe that there's a little too many bumps to get there, but I completely agree that Marcus Freeman is making a decision based on the totality and the grand scheme. Somebody said that to me, like, why don't you put Minchey out there? Or maybe it was Greg McElroy who said, put Minchey out there because Miami's defensive line is great and they're going to be getting after the quarterback. Let Minchey run around that. I'm like, no, just pick your guy and then start him and see where it goes.
That's also just not Marcus Freeman's style at all.
No, it's not.
I paused the timer because I have something to add here. One of you guys mentioned Kenny's mobility. I'm going to read something that Charles Power said when Kenny committed to Notre Dame in my expert reaction article, which I do for nearly every single commit for the Irish. He's a pass-first quarterback, but he's a functional mover with how he evades the pass rush and makes plays. Functional mover is not like he's a lights-out, like a dual threat guy. He's functional mover. That's what I would say about Carr. So my point of bringing this up is I think this is a part of Kenny's game that's evolved and like he's really like leaned into. I don't know if I want to say backyard football, but I think that is something like just his ability to make plays with his leg. I think that is something he's developed more than he like came to Notre Dame with. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
No,
yeah, Jack, go ahead. I do.
So I agree with that. Like, again, Kenny's not Riley Leonard. He's not Jaden Daniels. He's not going to single-handedly win you games with his legs. But like, I think you're right, Mike, that we've seen from Kenny in practices in the spring game, in two straight spring games, by the way, like that he is more than just a functional mover. I think he is he's not going to be like Riley Leonard breaking tackles from linebackers or jumping over Malachi Starks, but like he's going to be able to beat defenses to the edge. And yeah, like again, he's got a ton of confidence, but like he's going to be able to beat defensive ends to the edge, and he's going to be able to punish man coverage with his legs, and to extents that CJ Carr won't do as well.
on the one hand, I'm sitting here thinking, are we overestimating Kenny Minchey's rushing ability as this like great deciding factor between him and CJ Carr, who I think is more of the functional mover? If you're going to label one of them a functional mover, it's CJ Carr.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, every time we talk to Gino Guidugli and even some of the teammates and maybe even some of the other coaches as well, they go out of their way to say, yeah, Kenny can move, man. Like they just straight up say he's like when Steve Angeli was still here, and obviously, Steve Angeli might be a little less athletic than CJ Carr even. Like Gino Guidugli explicitly said, Kenny Minchey runs the best out of all of them. If he's got something that they don't, it's that. So I don't think we're overestimating it.
Yeah, something to point out for the folks who are like, well, CJ was just ranked so much higher than Kenny as a recruit. Not by Charles Power, who I'd heard that quote from. He had Kenny with a 93 grade, CJ with a 92. Just wanted to note that.
I also before we move on, Mike, real quick, I cannot stress enough how little the coaches care about their recruiting ranking in this competition. Like that's just not at all a thing whatsoever.
Disagree. It means absolutely everything. I'm just kidding. Pros and cons for quarterbacks. These two, Jack, you wrote this article. Why don't you lead us off? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to illustrate that, like when we were talking about earlier, they might have to decide not based on who's better, but based on which traits they prefer. I wanted to kind of lay out what traits Kenny and CJ bring to the table. It's not just, Kenny's the runner, CJ's the pocket passer. They're different as passers in some key ways. Some of Minchey's strengths that I wanted to highlight, he's got an elastic arm. What does that mean? It means he can generate torque and power on his throws without having to set his feet. So he can throw from different arm angles. He can throw on the run. Examples of elastic arms in the NFL would include Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, I'm not comparing Kenny Minchey to those two, but like that's his strength. He can generate power on his throws without setting his feet. He's creative. He's a gunslinger. Like he's an improviser. That would be his NCAA or CFB 25 archetype. I know they did like a bunch of new ones for the new game, but like that would be his archetype. He's an improviser. He puts things on the table that defenses can't game plan for in ways that Carr does not. Obviously, he's more athletic of the two. Some of CJ's pros, and I'll give Tyler you a chance to talk about these a little bit before we get into the cons. He's a very accurate downfield passer. He throws receivers open. Like we saw this in the spring game. He can pinpoint the ball in ways that like puts it over the DB's shoulder in ways that we haven't necessarily seen from Kenny. The pocket presence that we've seen from Carr is huge. The way he maneuvers the pocket, the way he stays calm and collected when he's in there. Again, that's something that I firmly believe you can't teach in quarterbacks.
I want to reiterate to Quinn that Jack did not compare Kenny to Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, but I will start my little diatribe here with that. I think what makes those two guys maybe the two best in the NFL, the two best in the world at doing this, is they have the elastic arm and they also have the throw people open quality. Like they see the game. So they're combining the best of Kenny Minchey and the best of CJ Carr. What do you get? Guys who win MVPs and Super Bowls and whatnot. So going back to Kenny, I think the gunslinger thing probably works more in his favor than against, because you like Brett Favre's the gunslinger, right? And there was a lot of knocks on him for the interceptions and whatnot. You're going to get interceptions with Kenny Minchey. I also think you're going to get interceptions with CJ Carr, and you're about to talk about that in a minute when you talk about the cons. But like, I think you take the type of interceptions that Minchey throws. If I'm visualizing what they are, it's pushing the ball downfield, and he's actually really good as well. I'll add this at like he has, you showed it or you saw it in the blue and gold game. Some of his incompletions are like impressive, and that's always not the best thing, but I love the way he pushes the ball downfield. When he does throw it downfield and the ball hits the turf, it wasn't, oh my gosh, that was such a bad throw. It was, okay, he gave the receiver a chance, and guess what? It was tight coverage and it didn't work out, but so be it. So love the way he pushes the ball downfield. With Carr, the pros, he just has QB1 aura, man. Like if he puts it all together, that's the highly ranked recruit. That's the guy that you see starting for a team like Notre Dame for multiple years. So is it happening right now? Maybe not, but like it probably will happen. He's got that it factor. I think he's a little bit of a gamer.
On the con side, and I'll also note that on the pro side for Minchey, like what Gino said in fall camp when we talked to him really stood out. Like Kenny's heart rate never changes. It don't go up. It don't go down. Could be running into a fire and his heart rate stays the same. He never gets rattled. That's along the lines of what Eric wrote about this morning. Again, not trying to give too much away there, but go read it. Like the way he responds to adversity, the coaching staff is really, really impressed with that. Some of the cons, I'll get into the interceptions part in a second, but with Minchey, like I don't think we've seen him make the same like anticipatory throws that we've seen from Carr, like anticipating guys coming open based on coverages and kind of what route they're running and who's covering, who's running the route. We haven't I'm not saying Minchey can't do it. We just haven't seen it to the extent that we've seen it from Carr. They both, I think, have a bit of an interception issue, but they're different types of interception issues. Like with Minchey, it's poor decisions. Like when he's kind of closed in the pocket or when his first read's not open, he can make, for lack of a better word, silly interception that might end up going the other way. We've seen that a couple times in practice with him. Carr's kind of go into reading the field. He kind of gets baited in interceptions. Again, Notre Dame has a really opportunistic secondary, so maybe this skews our perception. But I mean, we've seen and to some extent heard that Carr just kind of gets baited into picks, coverage disguises opportunistic DBs. It's kind of a matter, again, if you're Denbrock, when you're weighing these options, like which interception problem do you think is more fixable?
Unfortunately, you might not be able to find that out until they throw a few of them in games. The last point that I'll make is the emotion thing. I want to see how that comes about for these guys in games too. Because if Kenny is really like the heart rate never gets going, sometimes you kind of want it to. Like you want a little bit of that gamer stuff. But then on the other end of that, I think CJ Carr has a lot of it. And I hope that he doesn't go overboard with that and like throws the pick and then he gets too emotional. So like, I thought Riley Leonard, by the way, blended those two things very well. He was the swaggery type guy, but also like he knew when he had to change his mentality up a little bit. And he got Notre Dame all the way to the national championship game. No surprise.
I can't lie. Like the quarterback battle is great for business. I mean, you guys are watching our shows more than ever, but I am so ready for it to be over. So let's talk about other things. Jack, let's talk about the offense, not quarterback spot. What are some new things to develop in the past week or so since this last show on the offensive side of the ball?
We talked to the wide receivers. We got our first chance to sit down with Malachi Fields. Obviously a really, really good dude. Mike Brown really emphasized the leadership aspect that Malachi and Will Pauling bring to the table. And I think that that's something that was necessary with not that, again, we both predicted Jaden Greathouse being captain, not that the receiver room lacks leadership. It just skews very young. And I think having two guys who Pauling was a captain, Fields was Virginia does their captains a little weird. Like they elect captains after the season for some reason, but Fields was one of them in 2024. So by all technicalities, Pauling and Fields were both captains. I think that's a big part of why they're here and a big part of the impact they're making. And I think that's something that Mike Brown really emphasized to us the other day.
I had someone on Twitter respond to my captain's article today, say, they haven't had captains all year. What are we doing? We're playing a game in 18 days. I'm like, that's usually how this goes.
Anything works. No.
You don't have captains for spring ball, man. You don't need them. I'll stick with the wide receivers. Notre Dame just put out a video, 30-second practice clip. There wasn't a whole lot to it, to be honest. So don't go rushing to Twitter over watching what we're doing here. But at the end of it, Micah Gilbert beat Leonard Moore. You don't know. I really couldn't tell if it was 7-on-7, 11-on-11, or just a 1-on-1. I'm not really sure. But Micah Gilbert was behind Leonard Moore, made a catch in the end zone. I think that's a great thing for Notre Dame because Leonard Moore is still Leonard Moore. He's the All-American type corner. If Micah Gilbert is, I put this on social media as well, if he's playable, if he's a regular contributor, like say he's the number 5 guy that Notre Dame is searching for behind those top 4 receivers, I think that works wonders for Notre Dame. And then you talk to Jack, like, I don't know, I'll get this from you here in a couple seconds, but like I talked to multiple people who are around this, and it seems like everyone has a different pick for who's going to be, let's just say that number 5. You need the number 5 and the number 6 at wide receiver, but like I'm putting my neck out there for Elijah Burris. I think he's going to come on strong and he's going to make it to where Notre Dame has to play him. But then Eric Hansen will say, Watch out for Cam Williams. Micah Gilbert is reminding us that he had that really strong practice sequence a couple fall camps ago or spring ball, whenever that was.
Spring was running really
a couple springs ago. So, like, Jack, who's your fifth receiver? And if it's a hard decision for Mike Brown because they're all doing well, I think that's a huge thing for the Notre Dame offense.
Yeah, I think it's one of those five between Burris, Gilbert, Smith, who, if we can't forget, I know he's not as young, but we can't forget in this conversation, Williams. Actually, no, one of those four. Saldate, I think, is more of like the 7th or 8th guy. He's obviously a guy who.
It's tough because of the situation at slot.
Right. So he's someone Notre Dame likes a lot, and I think if he sticks around one more year, and all indications are he's going to. And Paulding's definitely gone. Greathouse could be gone. He's going to get a real opportunity in the slot next year. And if Paulding or Greathouse goes down, that's when he's going to get a real shot. But I think with those 5 and 6 spots, Notre Dame's going to want someone who are two guys who can really win on the outside. Going up front on offense, I wrote an article since our last show about Anthony Knapp. It is hard to overstate just how much his coaches and teammates think of him right now. Like, Josh Burnham told me he's elite. Anthony Knapp said he's dominant. He's over 300 pounds for one. Did I say Anthony Knapp said he's dominant? Emil Wagner said he's dominant. Both Wagner and Knapp are over 300 pounds, which is obviously a long time coming for Wagner, not as long for Knapp, but obviously a welcome sight. I mean, he looks bigger. He really impressed when we saw practice on day one. He is someone who Notre Dame thinks is going to have a really, really good season. And he's someone who Notre Dame thinks is going to be an NFL player at some point.
Yeah, one more thing on the offensive line. Knock on wood, but it's playing out how I 2 six-pack shows ago wanted it to, where you feel like you have your 5 and they're getting all of these reps. For 2 weeks, they've gotten all these reps together. For 2 more weeks, they're going to get all these reps together. If that's the 5 that you roll out there against Miami, you're in awesome shape. Now, with the tight ends, you probably got in a little bit worse shape with the Kevin Bauman injury, because it really looked like he looked like pre-2022 ACL Kevin Bauman that first day that we showed up. And is that Michael Mayer, Mitchell Evans, Tommy Tremble? No, but still a really good football player. Still a guy that was going to play a lot of football if he didn't have all those knee injuries. He has another one, obviously, and he's done. You're in a tight spot there at tight end. You only have 4 healthy scholarship guys. One of those is a true freshman. Another is a redshirt freshman. So a lot of Eli Raridan, a lot of Ty Washington. If they stay healthy, I still think you're fine at tight end. And then with the Kedron Young injury, Jack, you're still fine at running back, because all the talk was how many of those guys you have and how good they are. You lose one, it sucks for him personally. I would have loved to see him get some reps, but you still have a wealth of riches there, and you're going to be fine.
They are less fine at tight end than running back, for sure, because I think they really were going to need Bauman, at least until Cooper Flanagan comes back. And obviously not going to rush him back, and Achilles isn't Achilles, but they need him to come back as soon as possible.
Does anyone else see comments like Andy Wright's crazy how much talent is in the receiver room now compared to last year, and just like cringe, be like, man, how many times have we said that? But I do think this year's going to change.
I'm on that same page with you, but
the thing is, like, that statement was true at this time last year.
Anyways, I know Jack could spend 6 minutes on this as well, but yeah, let's talk about the defense. Tyler, what do you got?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we learned, and Jack just wrote a really good story on this at blueandgold.com, is the linebacker rotation. We made so much of it being 5 guys last year. We're not talking about the burger joint either. We're talking about 5 really good football players that Max Bola was able to roll out there, and they all played. Like, I think Kaiser and Bowen eventually separated themselves. KVA had that injury, but the rotation was the same all year, and it worked really, really well. Like, until KVA got hurt in the Army game, I think he played at least 21 snaps in every single game, and that Army game was late November. So you leaned on 5 guys last year. You leaned on 4 this year. You lose Kaiser, and Max Bola was basically telling us, like, we are not going to play somebody if they're not ready. If they're not going to look like those 4 guys, we're not going to put them on the field. That means your Madden Ferramos aren't there. Your true freshmen aren't there. Preston Zinter's been playing a little defensive line. So, like, it's those 4 guys, and that's what Bola's rolling with. And Jack, I think that's more than enough because those 4 guys are really, really good.
Right. I've always felt like there wasn't really a reason to introduce a 5th player to that group. People said like, oh, KVA did it last year. Why can't Framo? Number one, KVA had exactly as much legitimate playing experience, like in a clutch situation, not clutch situation, in like meaningful reps is the word I'm looking for, than Osbury and Bowen last year, because Bowen was a special teamer, Osbury redshirted. So he had a lot of competition for reps, but he didn't have to like displace someone who had done it before. Also, KVA was an extremely rare case last year in terms of how ready he was to play. That's kind of what I saw in spring ball. Like Framo was impressive in spring ball for sure, especially from a physical, like Framo is physically ready to play. But in terms of like what he did in the blue gold game, it wasn't close to what we saw from KVA a year ago. So I think it's the right move to let Framo, and by the way, the linebacker who he's been playing with the threes, Teddy Rizak, who I think someone on the message board was surprised when I wrote that. But like those are the 2 guys who are knocking on the door the most. I think it's a good idea to let them develop on their own path and just roll with the 4 guys who have done it before and who obviously weren't perfect last year. They had their ups and downs, but they were in general very good last year.
Got a comment. Where's the pass rush going to come from? So we might as well go to the defensive line here. I think the pass rush is going to be fine because we've talked about this before, Jack. You're going to get the most experienced and best Joshua Burnham, the most experienced and best junior Tui Halamaka. Boubacar Traore is coming back, and he's probably your kingpin there. He's the guy that you're going to look at to probably lead the team in sacks. But I've been saying all along that I think Bryce Young's going to lead this team in sacks. So if you have 2 right there that you're grappling between, like who's the best of those 2 guys, and then you add in Burnham and Tui Halamaka, you're in a pretty good spot on the edges. Jack, I'm actually a little bit more worried about the interior. Like as we get closer to game time, I just envision in my head like some of these scenarios where maybe Notre Dame's getting pushed back a little bit and you're like, oh shoot, is Gabriel Rubio not who we thought, or Jason Onye or Jared Dawson? The fact of the matter is all of these guys are in a position, and they got a little taste of it last year, like when Howard Cross had the ankle thing. Riley Mills goes out for the year with his knee injury. But over the course of a season, this is the first time that a lot of these guys are being looked at as the run stoppers or the guys to clog up the middle of a defensive line. So it's not that I'm terribly pessimistic. They've got to prove it to me. Like you got to say, you got to go out there over the course of an entire season and do what you got to do, because you've never really been asked to do it at this level without guys like Cross and Mills in the picture.
Agreed. I do think Donovan Heinisch is going to have a prolific season, at least from a pass rush standpoint. I still need to see a little more from him as a run defender, but I want to read this quote that Emil Wagner had about Donovan Heinisch. One of the hardest people to block, his lateral quickness, his hand speed, plus the added strength. Donnie is a nightmare. Even though I'm a tackle coming down to the 3-tech trying to block him, I really have to focus on this is a great player. What makes this quote stand out, it was unprompted. Blue and Gold's Tyler James asked this question. You mentioned the pass rushers. Is that an area of improvement you see? Like you keep stacking guys who can come off the edge and get to the quarterback. Like Wagner heard that, and his first thought was, hold on, we can get to the edge rushers in a second. I need to tell you about Donovan Heinisch. That to me is really telling, as well as the fact that whenever we've seen Heinisch, like Notre Dame, go full team or full D line action, Heinisch has been with the ones at nose tackle, even though Jared Dawson's someone who impressed us in the spring and is obviously a sturdy run defender. Like someone on the message board said, like, I think Heinisch is going to have a 2023 cross level season. And I'm not necessarily predicting that, but I kind of thought about it and I was like, why not? Like Heinisch was really, really good to end the 2024 season. He had a ton of pressures and a few sacks those last 8 or so games, including the play. He led the team in pressures during the playoffs with 7. Next best has 5. I think he's going to have a really, really breakout season.
He's got that dog in him too. He's just like his brother. He's definitely got that dog in him.
Top 10 of the preseason AP poll, both were in 41, by the way, is as follows: Texas A&M, Penn State, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, Notre Dame at 6, Oregon, Alabama, LSU, and Miami. So top 10 matchup in South Florida on August 31st. Tyler, what's your reaction to this? I'm sure you're gonna make it about UT, but let's see how we get there.
Well, I am going to make it about UT because you just said Texas A&M. I don't know if Jack caught that. Certainly somebody in the comments caught that. Texas A&M is absolutely not the number one team in the country.
Did I say them one?
I didn't even catch that, but that's really funny.
I think you said Texas A&M.
And I'm glad you said that, Mike.
They are 19.
Things. Chat, back me up, chat.
They're 19. My bad.
Texas A&M is 19, and that's a courtesy ranking. They'll fall out.
All right, Texas 8-4. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's get out of the Lone Star State now. Preseason polls are what they are. I'm glad to have Eric Hansen on our staff now because he went into his process of ranking these teams, and I think he said he's only one of us 66 who do that. Sounds about right. I hope more of the other people are doing what he does because, he's really in this, and he pretty much had, I'm looking at it now, what we're seeing there in the top 10. I really have no quarrels with it. I think when you look at it, the top 7 teams – were all playoff teams last year. So you have that little bit of recent pedigree. You have a lot of talent. It's not quarterback driven, which I think is kind of cool this year, Jack, where Arch Manning started a couple games, but not a lot. Drew Aller and Cade Klubnik in that top 10-ish. Garrett Nussmeier as well, if you go all the way down to LSU at 9. There's your quarterback experience, but I guess you can include Carson back too, but Notre Dame, new starter, Oregon, new starter, Ohio State, Georgia, Stockton obviously started the Sugar Bowl, but I think that was his first start of his career, right? So if you're worried, if you have somebody come up to you that says, how is Notre Dame the number 6 team in the preseason AP top 25? They don't even know who their quarterback is. Well, that's just, quarterbacks are being named right now. Alabama just did it two days ago, and you don't know what that guy's going to give you. So fight back and say, hey, that's a thing across college football, and Notre Dame absolutely has a top 5 to 10 roster, and I think 6 is a pretty good placement.
Yeah, I could see Notre Dame being ranked anywhere from 4 to 7, maybe. I would understand. Their roster as a whole is probably higher, but I probably need to see more from the quarterbacks before I rank them in the top 3. I would also put Texas at 1. I would probably put Penn State 2 as well. I think Ohio State and Clemson are really good football teams. The top 8 in general, I don't really have any quarrels with. I think those are the 8 teams in the country I could see winning national championship. People are going to scoff at the Bama thing, but they have a really loaded roster if they can get that quarterback right. You look through their starting lineup; they got some dudes on both sides of the ball. I would probably still rank Notre Dame ahead of Georgia, but I did read a good column from, I think, Jake Rowe of Dogs HQ earlier today that kind of talked about all of Georgia's true freshmen who are set to make an impact. And I'm reading that. I'm like, uh-oh, Kirby Smart's kind of at it again right now. So, if that does come to fruition, then they'll obviously be up there as well. Obviously, Notre Dame with a top 10 matchup against Miami officially in week 1. You look at 9 through probably 15. That's another pot of teams you could rank pretty much in any order. I know our Eric is really high on Florida. I also think Eric was pretty high on the list of they do a ranking of how voters who were closest to the general poll in their individual ballots, and I think Eric was in the top third, if not the top quarter. But yeah, no, I think there's tier 1 through 8. There's tier 2, 9 through 15, and I think Notre Dame's absolutely in tier 1.
Yeah, so you got that one game against a tier 2 team in Miami, and then you've got 2 against tier 3 teams if you're going off of the Jack Soble method here, which is A&M at number 19 and Boise State at 25. Again, I guess you're playing A&M early enough where you expect them to be ranked. A&M doesn't open with anyone crazy, do they?
I'll
you know
look
who
it
they
up.
play off the bat?
Keep talking.
But you would hope that both of those are ranked games. I think you welcome that. Marcus Freeman, what does he have? 14 ranked wins or 7? I don't know.
So they open up with UTSA, meet go Horns baseball, and they have Utah State next.
Yeah, so they're going to be ranked.
One would think they will be 2-0.
Yeah, they're going to be 2-0, but they're not going to move up very much because you're not going to wow anybody by beating those 2 teams. But yeah, I agree with you, Jack. the poll is what it is. I think when I'm looking at these teams, you probably expect. Yeah, I think that drop off is like it's right about 7 or 8 at Oregon or Alabama. You expect all of the teams ahead of that, including Notre Dame, to make the playoff. But then you get to LSU at 9 and Miami at 10, Arizona State 11. You're like, maybe not. Like that might not be a playoff team. You expect maybe a Florida to jump into that top 12, or Oklahoma's schedule is crazy and who knows what their quarterback situation is now. But like there's going to be some power teams.
Yes, it's still John Mateer. For all that.
There's going to be some power teams that kind of jump into that top 12 mix, I think.
Moneyline Mateer, I believe is
Moneyline Mateer.
There you go.
Tyler got my Venmo request yesterday. It was funny.
Yeah, it was UCLA versus USC. Sports gambling.
Sports gambling parentheses UCLA versus USC.
I'm a big Venmo guy, but I have always, since the day I got it, had it on private. I do not understand why anyone would have it on public unless you just don't know that you have it on public. Like I get on there and there's people I haven't talked to since high school and I see their Venmo transactions and they are things that I do not need to see, but they're there. I just don't get it. I think it's bizarre.
So weird that there's like a feed for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's like a social media feed. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Who's looking at that? Like you got to be some kind of bored. Like, can we get some football to be played, please? If you're like looking at that feed, we don't need that.
I'd also like to shout out whatever probably insane Texas Longhorns fan was looking through John Mateer's Venmo transactions from 2022.
It wasn't me.
Also, quick shout out before Mike does the hit the thumbs up thing. How about Max Hurlman? Like completely random thought. Like Notre Dame in the NFL briefly to end the show. Like how about the walk-on Colgate transfer who is balling out at Steelers camp as a wide receiver and running back right now?
Should Notre Dame have played him last year? I mean,
what was Max Hurlman Notre Dame's second or third best receiver last year?
Seriously, I think he's going to make the Steelers roster, and he's a PA kid as well. He
will. From everything I've seen, I don't know about roster, but he's a really good bet for at least practice squad, which is still insanely impressive.
There will be outrage because that is an intense fan base. If he's had this camp and they just cut him, those fans will be like, "What? Fire Mike Tomlin tomorrow, yesterday, whatever."
What's really impressive is like he didn't sign there straight up as an undrafted free agent. He was a mini camp tryout player. Like your chances of standing out enough as a tryout player at mini camp and picking up a contract in the first place are extremely low. And he did that, and now he's putting up a real fight to make the roster, which is just incredible.
Tomorrow is a rare day. We won't have any content on the YouTube channel unless something happens tomorrow. We'll see. But Friday we have
knock on wood here.
Yeah, knock on wood. Recruiting
I hope
show
happens because there's like a media luncheon tomorrow, so everyone's going to be at the same place at the same time, and that's when we're going to learn the quarterback news tomorrow at about noon. Right? That's when it comes.
Nice.
Mike, I hope you're ready to type.
I'll be ready. I will be ready.
Whatever they do, I'm hoping they don't go with the Friday afternoon news dump because I would.
They typically haven't. I'm really feeling Sunday morning social media posts right before we talk to Marcus Freeman.
That's my guess as well. I mean, what's a better guess at this point other than expect the worst, the Friday afternoon one? But
the last news dump was Young and Bauman. They did that Saturday morning.
Yeah, this is different though. Like
this is different.
Unless you're trying to hide it, unless you're trying to hide this decision, which would not be a great thing. But you'd think you want to publicize it. So.
The Bears in 2019 did the Friday afternoon news dump when they did the Trubisky Nick Foles thing, and I still have flashbacks from that.
But we will still have plenty of Blue and Gold YouTube content in the coming days, and of course, blueandgold.com. So much. Coverage up on the website. I'm working to get it up on the screen. Let's see if I can. There it is. Yeah, I mean, practice intel. We've had this Eric Hansen piece up on the front page all day. I mean, let's put the over under right now. It is 5:46 p.m. Eastern time. The over under at like 7 articles up on the site.
You're just trying to gas us up because it's way more than that.
It's got to be way over. I just didn't know how to get close.
I only had 2 today. It's pretty low.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 articles. I know I have one more coming today. I was writing it during this show, and I'm sure. So there will probably be at least 3 or 4 more. I mean, you're talking about on a given day, 10 to 15 articles. Like if you're a Notre Dame fan, I do not know why you wouldn't be subscribed to Blue and Gold. So go to the website, blueandgold.com. Would love for you all to be a part of our community. That is going to do it for this video. Hit the thumbs up on it, subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you next time.